Welcome to the Temple of Beauty. And am I not beautiful, oh man? Look at my hair, black as a moonless night. Look into my eyes, deep pools of desire. Look at my complexion, pale white and glistening.
Ma'am, you're not that hot.
You bastard!
Well, it's Halloween season and y'all know what that means. Time to check out a game with some spooks. The difficulty comes in which one. The horror genre is pretty vast and a lot more diverse than people give credit for. Well, since the world's been in a messed up state this year, might as well talk about a game that reflects that, right? And I know just the game. Yeah, you see the goddamn title. Today, I'm talking about Harvester, the most violent adventure game of all time. And that's not just me hyping this game up, the devs themselves market it as such, and everyone that's played this game seems to be in agreement with that. Yeah, I'm with the consensus on this because out of all the adventure games I've played, this is easily the most fucked up of them all. Christ almighty, what were the devs on when they created this?
And some mothers complain that their children don't come to see them.
Mommy, you're so good. You're so good.
This is one of those games where after you're done with it, you just want to sit the creator down and be like, bro, what the fuck were you on when you created this shit? This shit is not right. This shit is twisted. If Jack Thompson caught a wind of this in the 90s, he'd probably advocate for the whole video game medium to be banned. Not to say that this game went completely under the radar, because boy it did not. You know a game has some shit in it when it gets banned in 2 developed countries. Some of that has to do with the gory imagery, which admittedly is still pretty gnarly, but most of it is just the insane vibe overall. We're dealing with all the bad isms here. Cannibalism, Satanism, sexism, you name it. This game simultaneously feels like a cursed relic and a shitpost, which is why this game has garnered a cult status since. As disturbing as this game is sometimes, it's also weirdly hilarious. We'll get into all this later when we talk about the story proper, but for now, what's up with our plain looking flannel man here and all the violence that's surrounding him?
What do you people want from me?
More pie, Shaman?
Welcome to our order.
The hand that grips my fist.
Stephanie.
So you play as Steve Mason, an 18-year-old dude that awakens in this 1950s Midwestern-like town called Harvest. He has no memories of who he is and doesn't know who the hell anyone else in town is either. He explores the town to gather answers only to have this place called the Lodge constantly brought up in conversation. The Lodge is this large holy, or I guess in this case unholy building in the middle of town that serves as the base of this cult called the Order of the Harvest Moon. It's clear that these dudes dominate the whole town, and Steve suspects that he'll find all the answers he's looking for if he joins them. He gets in an application, but before he can be let inside the building and officially become a member, he has to pass a series of initiation rites, which are mostly just Satan here giving you a task to complete by the end of the day. All criminal offenses that escalate in their foulness. Also, there's this woman named Stephanie that Steve is supposed to get married to soon that also has amnesia like him. More on that later.
This may sound strange, but I've lost my memory. Do you believe me?
Well, you always were a kidder, Steve.
Yeah, so I'm just letting y'all know now. If you're eating something while watching this, you might want to put the fork down until the end of the video because there's some nasty ass imagery here. Luckily, most of it isn't shown until shit hits the fan later. Large chunk of the game is simply looking at the dull town of Harvest, and yeah, it's dull alright. There's not really anything to do or see around here. You got your essential places like a school, a police station, and a post office, and some other places, and that's about it. Immediately familiar, but incredibly mundane. It's all purposeful though. On the surface, Harvest is supposed to be this wholesome small town, but that illusion gets shattered quickly once you start talking to the people. Hell, the music is already an indicator that something is off. You got some screens that are your typical spooky ambience, and then you got other screens where there's no music and just stock sounds and other weird sound effects. The audio quality is kind of shit though. Everything is all muffled and sometimes the music just skips and fades in and out. I'm not really sure if that's how it's supposed to be, but it does kind of add to the odd vibe.
Anything else you can tell me?
I hear these weird scraping sounds in the bathroom sometimes. Like something is sliding along the wall. Claws, maybe. And Mr. Potsdam. I don't like the way my dear daddy looks at me. Both of them are always watching me. But especially him.
Yeah, this game wasn't really doing anything different from its contemporaries at the time. The whole pre-rendered background thing and full motion video style was on the rage in the mid-90s and only the mid-90s. Dates this game quite a bit, but at the same time, it perfectly fits the surreal tone. It's also pretty neat to go back to a game like this, since games just don't look like this anymore. It's so bizarre when the game wants to show a full motion video because the transition isn't smooth. There's a whole second delay, and it's pretty jarring. Maybe that's a DOCSbox issue, but who knows? Yeah, this game in general didn't feel like it had too much of a budget. There's not even a damn main menu screen. Every time you boot up this game, it goes straight into a new game. And the voice acting? What is there even to say about that? It's the stuff of legends. It falls perfectly in the it's so bad that it wraps around to being kinda good. Just classic B-movie acting. Every character sounds and looks like they were the neighbors of the developers and they were just brought in to read some lines.
Hey Steve, I'm Jimmy James. Remember me?
I guess not.
Hey, how come you haven't been putting the paper out for me in the morning? Yeah? Well, try to remember, will ya? How'd you expect a working Joe to make an honest living? You don't put the paper out, I'm out of a job.
So what? You don't get paid for picking up papers anyway.
The Sentinel building burnt down. What the heck else am I supposed to do? Listen, start putting that paper out and everything will be jake, okay?
But then you have other performances here, like these gay firefighters that are just so damn exaggerated that I just can't, bruh.
Art enriches the community, Steve. No less than a pulsing fire hose or a fireman beating down a blazing door. So what if we're drawing a nude man? So what if all we ever draw is a nude man, or the same nude man over and over in all sorts of provocative positions? Context, not content. Process, not subject. Don't be so ghosty, it's beneath you.
But just like everything else that's kind of off about this game, it kind of works. Hate to keep laboring the same point, but yeah, since everyone in Harvest is secretly insane, the off performances fit that thematically. It perfectly contrasts Steve and Stephanie, who are the only two characters that are close to sounding normal and should be story-wise. I can't really fault this game too much for having janky voice acting, since in '96 there weren't many games that had good voice acting yet anyway, especially in games like these where damn near every line is voiced.
Howdy, Steve.
I can't with these faces, bruh. So the gameplay of Harvest is your typical point-and-click adventure game. Much of your time is going to be spent going from screen to screen, clicking around the environment. There's many logic puzzles to figure out where you're gathering items and have to use them in the right place. And there's also many NPCs to talk to that not only give you hints on what to do, but move the plot along generally. The player, just like Steve, has no idea what's going on, so the first day is mostly spent just getting some answers. You immediately feel that the vibes are off though, because every time Steve brings up his amnesia to people, you're hit with this line.
Well, you always were such a kidder, Steve.
Yeah, if there was ever a meme that stemmed from this game, it would definitely be this line right here. It never fails. Every time you bring up that you can't remember shit, people brush you off. And just like Steve, you soon get tired of hearing it as a response.
I'm telling you the truth. Why won't anyone believe me?
Well, you've always been a kidder, Steve.
Yeah, so everybody keeps telling me.
Yeah, the thing that'll immediately draw you into this game are simply the wacky ass characters that live in Harvest. The more you learn about the town and these people, the more you're just like,
I gotta get out of here!
Because holy fuck are these people morally depraved. Suspicions arise immediately when you walk down the stairs and your supposed brother is watching a show where cowboys are slaughtering Native Americans, gore and all. Later, you actually meet the asshole airing this, and he goes on this weird diatribe on how showing violence isn't all too bad.
Violence is as American as apple pie and low SAT scores. Where would we be right now if the cowboys hadn't gone out west and butchered innocent people to steal their land? Answer me that, Mr. Know-It-All.
But what about studies that have shown that children become more violent when watching violence?
Buckaroo, I rip the guts out of godless heathen Injuns. Most kids don't see godless heathen Injuns on a regular basis, and if they do, they better either get their eyes checked or do like old Range Rider and shoot the bejesus out of them. Lest they want to go untreated for psychotic hallucinations, or wind up with their scalps hanging from a buckskin belt. Oh, shit! Ow! Shit on a stickeroo!
Keep in mind of some of the stuff he actually said, as it's actually a theme that comes around later. But the cowboy isn't even scratching the surface on the weirdos you come across. Just next door you got the Potsdam family, where the dad has this weird obsession with meat, to the point where you feel like he would cap someone just for a steak, a raw steak.
Meat is the foundation of any decent society. Everyone needs at least 3 servings of red meat a day, and anyone who says otherwise is a commie. And once you're married to Stephanie, I'll be part of the family too, and your father will give me all the meat I want. Trying to make up for not getting into love.
You got the mom who's literally just your supposed mom in a wig.
Honestly, you men can insult a woman without even knowing you've done it. What a horrible thing to say.
You're both standing around baking cookies. Same cut of dress. Same pearls. So bizarre.
And then down the street from here, you got this weird old lady that for whatever reason has a hard-on for wasps.
I don't see any particular use for wasps.
Why must everything have a use? Is money always the determining factor? More slender, more aerodynamic than the bee, the wasp is a joy to behold. Beautiful and juicy. Isn't that enough to compensate for the little drawbacks?
That's another thing. Many people in this town seem to be secret pervs, especially the old men. This principal right here should be nowhere near a school, let me tell you.
You turned out pretty good, except for that amnesia nonsense.
It's not nonsense.
Well, you always were a kidder, Steve. Maybe you need a little straightening out. Oh, the things I could do to you. You'd be a much finer young man with just a little quality time.
And I don't know what the fuck is going on with this deputy dude here. There's this minor objective where you have to go into the evidence room, right? But obviously that shit's locked up. You gotta get the key in the cop's desk, but this deputy dude is always there. Obviously you need to distract him, but guess how you do it? Go on, take a guess. You have to buy the one porno mag at the general store, give it to him so he can jack off in the next room. What type of bullshit?
Hello, Steve. Where's Loomis?
You'll be coming around about if you come. Oh, that's good.
Loomis, damn you.
Wait, no.
You pervert.
No.
Straighting up the mattress again. Folding up the towels. Charming snake.
I think my favorite weirdo in this game though is this handicapped military dude that's watching over a pair of nukes. Yeah, you heard me right. There's this random nuclear missile base in town that seems to be guarded by this one handicapped guy who for whatever reason carries the activation button on him at all times. This fucking guy is so paranoid of communists that no matter what you say to him, he'll suspect you of being a communist, and once he does, it's pretty much lights out for you.
Frankly, all these questions are making me a little suspicious of you. Maybe you're one of those pink-blooded Americans. Can you give me any reason why I shouldn't shoot you right now?
I'm an American? I got rights?
Rights, huh? Your average commie bastard is always only too ready to hide behind the Constitution. Real Americans waive their rights for the common good.
Let's go with the patriotic answer. He seems like one of those type of guys.
You talk a good game, mister. But so does your average commie bastard. The Kremlin teaches its agents to talk their way out of a scrape. What do you think about that, son?
I think you're giving them way too much credit.
You should have watched more TV and read less Dostoevsky if you wanted to pass for an American, comrade.
Anyway, I don't want to give away too much. Like I said before, much of the intrigue is discovering how messed up this town is. I mentioned the characters, but there's actually a few creepy mysteries that keep things tense, like how every drifter or homeless person in Harvest just drops dead after a while and nobody bats an eye. Unfortunately, storylines like those are just backdrops. They don't really have much relevance to the main plot, and now that I'm thinking about it, half of the town, including the missile base, don't really play into the main plot at all, which is pretty disappointing. After you get the application to the lodge, the game falls into a flow with doing a certain task for the lodge each day so you can actually get into the lodge. This is where the puzzle solving comes in, going around town, getting certain items so that when the night comes, you have what you need to execute the daily task. And just like every other adventure game in the 90s, sometimes you need a guide because goddamn, what you need to do can be cryptic as hell. Like in day 4, you need to break into the barbershop and steal this barber pole, right? But for whatever reason, you need to tape up the door before you can smash in the window. Not to mention, once you get inside, you can't just unscrew it from the wall and take this shit. You have to turn the switch off, as if unscrewing it from the wall and disconnecting it from its cables isn't just gonna power it off anyway. Kept getting arrested over this dumb shit. Did he just tuck him in bed? Anyway, the puzzles are pretty obtuse at times, but at least the game gives some freedom during the daytime to set up for them. You can either get the items you need by the books by trading or talking, or you can be a complete psychopath and slaughter whoever doesn't give you what you want. A path that the game does not really punish you going down, at least if you can pull it off, because some of the townsfolk don't go down without a fight. Because I tried to be good, I didn't really do much to piss off the townsfolk, but there are a lot of hidden dialogue and cutscenes that are rewarded to those that think outside the box.
Hello, dear. How are you today?
I wonder.
What a thing to say to your mother. Was that an invitation now that your father is out of action? Maybe later, dear. Right now I have housework to do. Though you can watch if you want. Don't forget to put the papers out for Jimmy. You know how he gets.
This game is sick. So all the things I mentioned so far only really applies to the first 2/3 of this game. Once you get into the lodge, the gameplay shifts dramatically for the worse. Instead of exploring and puzzle solving being the focus, now there's a shitload of combat, and the combat is just atrocious. You see this? This is how every combat encounter goes. It's practically the Wolfenstein meme. You gotta slice up motherfuckers before they can slice you up, but everything about it just feels so bad. It looks ugly, the hitboxes are shit, which means it's incredibly inconsistent, and some of these fights you just straight up can't win unless you're strapped. Oh yeah, that's another thing that's some bullshit, is that you can royally screw yourself during the last stretch of this game if you don't have any guns on you. More specifically the shotgun, which I swear you have to have for some of these fights. Not sure if the game will let you proceed without it, but if it does, for the love of God, don't. The game starts introducing a whole bunch of projectile wielders that you can't even get close to. I had the shotgun and I still damn near soft locked myself just because I didn't have enough ammo or health. Yeah, this is pretty bad. And the worst part is that it all comes out of nowhere. Unless you went out of your way experimenting earlier, you're not going to be conditioned to doing any of this. Hell, even if you were, this would still be the most uninteresting part of this game since it's just combat. I guess having some sort of combat was a necessity considering the main theme of this game, but did it have to be this shit? Speaking of the themes and stories though, I guess it's about time we talk about it, and there's really no way to talk about it without going into some spoilers, so here's the warning. So after you power your way through the lodge to save Stephanie, you're hit with the big twist at the end. You've been in a simulation the whole time that was meant to desensitize you to violence and breed you into a serial killer, aka a harvester. You got a choice of two endings in the end here. Either marry Stephanie, live and harvest happily, but get killed in the real world, or kill Stephanie, join the harvesters and become a serial killer in the real world. Yeah, both are pretty shit outcomes, but the game really doesn't take itself all that seriously, especially with the second ending where it's just blatant about its satire.
What are you doing, son?
Playing harvester.
That thing? I looked at it the other day. The very thought. Breeding serial killers. It's disgusting.
It's cool.
You'll rot your mind playing games like that. Don't you know people who watch violence become violent themselves?
That's bullshit, Mom.
No, it isn't. Why do you think they started cutting the violence out of those Roadrunner cartoons?
Roadrunner cartoon. Roadrunner cartoon?
Yep, this whole game was one big joke about how violent video games make people more violent. Pretty much a giant middle finger to those that were moral panicking about it at the time. Reason for all the exaggerated violence, which, yeah, we're not dealing with some highbrow shit here, but not everything has to be, and I think that this game does succeed in getting its point across. I don't know for sure, but I would imagine the vast majority of people that played through this game didn't go on to become serial killers after. And with how tongue-in-cheek the tone is, it's kind of hard to take offense at some of the fucked up things that this game presents. Although I wouldn't look down on anyone that is grossed out by some of this stuff. It is a little refreshing though to go back to a game that's so brazen when it comes to its violence. Many modern games, when presenting the choice of violence to the player, will usually try to make the player feel bad afterwards for doing so. This game is just like, yeah, no, it's just a video game. As long as you're not doing this shit in real life, you'll be alright.
I'm a taker, initiate. Allow me to take you there.
So yeah, that's Harvester. One of the most insane games that I've ever played. Not for the faint of heart, there's some truly disturbing shit in here, but there's also a lot of hilarity. This is one of those ultra rough around the edges games that's technically horrendous, however it's also really fascinating, and my fascination with it overrides most of the gripes I have with its quality. Yeah, this is a tough sell because the second half of this game is not fun to play, and I would only recommend this to those that are willing to try something really alternative. Would also recommend getting the GOG version over Steam, as it seems that one has less issues. Anyway, that's all I gotta say about this one. If you like this video, do the usual stuff to boost it in the algorithm, and I'll see y'all next time.